Okay, hi everybody. Just going to move that down and we'll get started. I'm Charlie Osmond, the Chief Tease at Triptease, and I'm joined today by Malte Jess from Google.
Hey everyone, glad to have you all here on the webinar. My name is Malte. I'm the regional product lead for hotels here in our Google Singapore office for the entire APAC region. I'm very excited to talk about meta search with you guys today.
Great. Okay, so to give you a bit of a heads up, what we're going to be doing is, first of all, Malta's going to talk a bit and give us an introduction to Google Hotel Ads and the state of play and how that's evolved over the last few years and how hotels can take part in this very, very important growing marketplace, a massive opportunity for driving direct bookings, which is why we at Triptease are very excited about it. And then after that, I thought I would touch on a few of our experiences at Triptease. About a year ago, we launched a new line of service, a new product set to help hotels use their own data to make smarter bidding decisions on Meta. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the things we've learned from which hotels get real value and those that struggle, why it is they struggle. So hopefully that's what we find useful. So Malte, over to you.
Thank you so much, Charlie, for the intro. And yeah, guys, like before we get into the details of online marketing, I like to always just make a step back at this point and think a little bit back about my own childhood, which is about 20 years ago already by now. So quite some things changed in that time. I'm from Germany, as you might be able to hear originally. And my highlight of the year as a kid was basically when my mom once went to a travel agent into the city. She came back with some fancy magazines about hotels and travel destinations. And we were going through them, decided on where to go, went to the agent, booked the trip, went on the trip, took some pictures, looked at them, and were very happy with the entire experience. What I'm getting at, this was a quite straightforward process, and we didn't think too much about what we are doing there. If we are now looking at this nowadays, how travelers or today's customer journey looks like for travelers, one thing that we do realize is that we are looking at a quite complex and fragmented environment where travelers have so many media touch points and options to find information, inspiration, options to book. May that be on their mobile phone, offline still in the catalog, or while they are watching a YouTube video. And all of that can be to a certain extent confusing for travelers, but of course also for travel companies that want to reach users at the right time. The one thing that we do realize here is that along this very complex journey, travelers come back to Google at various stages and ask their travel-related questions. And that's basically something that we see at an increasing trend. And we also see this, of course, increasingly happen on the mobile phone, which, for example, in India makes up by now 70% of online bookings already, which is a very high percentage. And we see many markets across APAC having similar trends. But when we look at these travel-related searches that we have, we try to categorize them, of course, a little bit to make this complex journey a bit more structured and have basically 4 different types of moments, how we call it, which is the I want to know, the I want to go, I want to book, and I want to do experience. And that's basically, if you look at it from a marketing funnel perspective, it's from the awareness stage, so the dreaming, down to the actual booking. So that's where the high intent stage is, and then of course even experiencing. So once you book and you're there, you of course have more questions about what to do. And along this entire journey, we are trying to assist travelers to find the information that is most useful to them. We have various different tools here, but what is most important is that all of these are connected. And one of them, for example, is the hotel search unit, where you, if you are a hotelier, are able to, for example, be featured via ads. All of this happens within Google under the mission to be the trusted place where travelers go for personalized information to make faster and effortless decisions. And I hope you got a little bit of a feel in this intro how we as Google are able to help the travelers here. And I always just want to emphasize at this point, in APAC specifically, I would say the biggest development is the mobile phone. It depends on which market we are looking at, but overall, if you want to be successful as a hotelier in APAC, you better have a mobile strategy in bidding and website and everything in place. But now let us look at what specifically is hotel ads in this universe that we just talked about. So hotel ads is basically part of Google search as you know it, and all Google search products. So that can be also maps, for example, and of course across devices. That is very, very important here. How does it exactly look like? So if you look on the left picture here on this screen, you're seeing what we call the hotel search unit, where you first see a map and below that a price graph, and then you see actual hotel results for a given city for that you searched. Important is these results, they are organic. So this has nothing to do with an ad component. And by participating on Google Hotel Ads, you will not be able to push your hotel in this organic ranking. The ad component comes in once a user clicks onto a specific hotel in here. For example, if you now shift to the right-hand side, we are getting to what we call the hotel place sheet, where you have the option to go to the website organically, so without a paid click to call the website or the owner of the, of course, hotel in this case. And then if you look a little bit below on that picture, that's where the actual ad component highlighted with a little ad also comes in, where actually booking partners are able to show with their rates. And those can be, of course, from OTAs up to the hotelier, any type of partner that communicates the rates for us and participates and wins in the auction. But we'll come to that later.
So can I, just before you move on, stop you for a second, because that's really interesting. I forgot one of the participants at the direct booking summit we had recently in Paris. He said that he'd kind of given up on SEO for his hotel in the main Google search a few years ago. But in the last year, he put loads of effort into SEOing for organic rankings specifically for this. I mean, he's found it really successful. So a top tip is, at the moment, this is a little known organic SEO optimization opportunity that some people are definitely getting some value from.
Focus on the GMB entry is the buzzword here.
And I was going to add, sorry, and one other thing while I've stopped for a second is, please, I forgot to say at the beginning, if you have any questions for Malte or for me as we go, feel free to put them into the GoTo meeting. We'll look at them as we go and either answer them on the way or towards the end. But thank you.
Sure. Then let's say just, we now talked about already this hotel place sheet there, but just to make a step back again for you to really understand how do we get there and how does that fit into the overall Google search result. So of course you can go on Google and search for a specific hotel, in this case the Okura Prestige Bangkok, and you have the search results where on the left side we have what we call the SEM text ads managed via Google Ads, or previously called AdWords. Below that, of course, there would be the organic search results as well. On the right hand side is the Google My Business entry of the property, and that again, like, that is organic information in the Google My Business entry, but if you are the property owner, then you can manage this information, and the content richness and relevance of this information is of course quite important. The ad aspect about which we're talking right now comes below that. So basically the ads are matched to the Google My Business entry, and you see in this example there are various different companies displaying price ads for the Okura Prestige. So that's the one way, by looking for a specific hotel. But of course, thinking back again about the traveler's journey and the different stages, you might have not yet decided to which hotel you want to go. Then you're looking for hotels in city X. In this case, I think it's hotels in Bangkok, or maybe it's hotels in Jakarta. I think it's hotels in Bangkok. So in any case, you also here have the SEM ads first, and below that you have the hotel search unit that is at this point an organic ranking. Clicking into the hotel search unit will bring you into this hotel search list, where you see the hotels, and if you hover over them, you would see where they are on the map. So of course, even if you optimize your GMB entry a lot, if your hotel is not located very centrally towards the location that the user is looking for, then it's probably also not going to be ranked very high here. But in any case, this is how it looks like. And once you then click into it, you're getting to this hotel place sheet where, again, this is the ad component. Here, once the user is there, you have the ability to display your price. And that also gives you an indication of that the traffic by this time is quite qualified, right? A user has to go through quite some stages in order to end up specifically here, and by that has a high intention to book. And that's why you might want to participate as a hotelier here and show your prices to users. Similar on Google Maps, so the way that you're looking for a specific hotel or for a city, hotels in a city, triggers the same hotel ads. It's just important to note that you have it across maps and search. And then another way is, again, to like think back to the beginning, from dreaming to booking, that you can also get into the hotel ads flow by, for example, being inspired on Google destinations about different places to visit. So again, hotel ads, one specific ad component, but it's part of an overall assistance across the traveler's journey. So let us talk a little bit about why you should be on hotel ads. Most importantly, we do see that hotel-related searches are constantly growing year over year. This is a global statistic where it's around 25%. In APAC, I can disclose that much. We see a drastically higher growth percentage because we are here in a growth region. Another point is that we have quite worked on being user-friendly and having rich content again. So it's just like for you to understand, hotel ads is part of a larger information flow for the user of where does the hotel, where's it located, how is it reviewed, what can I do in the hotel, how does it look like. This is all part of the hotel place sheets. And then also a little study here. If you see the study that we did on 2012, where people basically focus on the search results, you see that back then people were very focused to the top left. So basically the more red it is here, the more people focus on it. While when we introduced the GMB entries with hotel ads for the same search results, the focus shifted towards the GMB entries. In other words, this is where you have the highest visibility for your brand also, if you want to.
That's amazing. I find this just the most amazing. The fact that you've changed the way 1 billion people look at the search results.
I mean, if there's one thing we constantly experiment with UX, again, this all ties back to we want to make it as smooth as possible for a user to find the information they are looking for. And apparently, if you're on a hotel booking stage, finding the price is a quite relevant component. A couple of success cases here, but I think most important to highlight is, yes, we do see that our hotel partners have strong ROIs and conversion rates on hotel ads, but it's also about, of course, what's your goal really, like with which goal are you using the product? Are you using it to have the highest ROI channel? Then you can optimize towards it. Are you using it towards 100% visibility for your own property and own brand, hashtag direct booking? That you have to answer, but just important to note that yes, there are success cases, but success depends on what your goal is with which you use the product. And so let's lastly talk about how to get integrated into hotel ads and a bit of the functionality of the auction before you, Charlie, deep dive into that a bit more. So quite simply speaking, you need two things. You need feeds and you need bids, and then you can go live. What that exactly means, I clarify in the next couple of minutes. But most important is, especially if the feeds piece is something you would think right now, what does this all refer to? There are, for hoteliers, partner agencies that do manage this for you in case that is too complex. And that's actually the route that nearly all of the hotels globally go. The bid management, you might want to do yourself, or you might want to get an expert to do that for you. So these are basically the requirements that someone needs to fulfill in order to go live on hotel ads. Of course, you need a website. The hotel needs to have a Google My Business entry in order for hotel ads to show below it. the feeds that I just mentioned need to be prepared in order for us to assure that we show the right price under the right hotel for the right check-in dates. You can see there are quite some dynamic components in it. And then, of course, you have to engage in bidding. In the overall auction and as a success factor for hoteliers, there are a couple of components that we can highlight here. One is definitely price competitiveness, and by that refer to assure that you are having at least a price that is competitive against the others, if not even being better than the others. And why is that relevant? Because if you are having a cheaper price, this is a factor that is considered in our auction, and you might be able to get through the auction with lower bids than other partners in the auction. But of course, there are more components to the auction besides the bid and the price competitiveness. We do also have a quality score that also relates to price, again, because we do want to show accurate prices, meaning if you're always communicating the lowest price, but a user cannot book it on the website, you are going to get penalized in the auction, and you will realize it's going to get unprofitable very quickly. But last but not least, bidding is still the one component about you might have the most control if you decide to do it yourself. And that's why I want to talk about the bidding aspect a little bit more in the How Hoteliers Works piece. So first of all, it's important to note here that you are not bidding on a keyword like in SEM, but you're bidding on individual properties. So you don't manage any keywords, you really just submit your bids based on the property, and you can look at, if you have several properties, how profitable is a property for me, and based on that decide how you want to bid. In doing so, you have various factors that you can consider in placing the bid. So for example, if you know that length of stay of 2, for example, is more profitable than length of stay of 1 in your data, then you can adjust the bids. And so there are multiple of these factors that you can consider in bidding, but I'm also very aware that many on the call here might now be confused when we are talking about different factors on how to bid. That's why I again say here, it's about your goal with which you're using Hoteliers. If you want to control all these factors to get the most efficient bookings, then you can, or you get help from a partner who can do that on your behalf. If this is all too complicated for you, you can of course also utilize our automated bidding solution. And there, just to clarify what that means, you do have as a hotelier the chance to also participate on Hoteliers by actually specifying a commission percentage like you're used to it from OTAs or so, where you say, I'm willing to pay 10% against the net stays. So we delete cancellations. The downside here is that this might not give you as much visibility as you are able to achieve with your own bidding. So again, it is dependent on the goal that you are having, and we can just stress that it's a good way to start via commissions, but it might be beneficial to some point also engage in manual bidding or get a partner that helps you in optimizing the manual bids. So these are the overall bidding solutions that we currently have. I would say, for the sake of simplicity, remember there's a commission way and then there is the manual way. And what that really means is commission, you pay a percentage of booking value. Manual bidding means you pay a cost per click. And that means there is no guaranteed ROI, while you do have that in the commission percentage. So 3 things to remember here to wrap this up is our hoteliers see Hoteliers as a source of direct traffic, and you can increase direct traffic by it. You own the relationship by getting the customer on your website, and for example, also engage with your loyalty program if you have things like that. And last but not least, of course, you can grow revenue efficiently, as many cases have shown. And if you're now asking yourself, in case you're not yet on there, you're interested and you don't want to do it by yourself, I can just recommend you just Google Hoteliers integration partners. You'll be redirected to our website, and there are multiple partners that can help you with the integration. And I would say with that in mind, thanks for the attention for the Google specific component here, and I'm handing over to Charlie to share a little bit more on the bidding expertise.
Okay, just before we do, one quick question, sure. Because only I was asked on Friday in Sydney by a hotelier, was you mentioned the quality score, and having a good quality score, which means that the prices that you feed to Google are accurate for the dates. Some hotels find it frustrating when they see OTAs put up prices that aren't accurate. What is the way a hotel should deal with when they see or they believe that other partners are putting up false prices?
So like, I mean, they can really take screenshots of it that like false. Let's define what false means, right? Like false does not mean here that they are undercutting them, because that is the business between the hotelier and the OTA. False would mean that if you click on the ad and click through to the checkout page, that the price you see on Google doesn't match what is shown on the checkout page, right? Because there might be in between, they might not show the taxes and fees, but the final payment that the customers do should be equal to a very small marginal error to what you see on Google. If that's not the case, they can take screenshots and go on, like I think they can look for hoteliers' price accuracy violations and can escalate those cases. But they can also rest assured that this is checked on a daily basis. And just because an OTA shows a couple of inaccurate prices does not immediately mean that they go offline, okay? But it means that in the background, they will encounter severe CPC penalties, which hurt their ROI, and that will make them fix this very, very soon. You can trust me on that,
Okay, got it. So checking every day, that's good to know.
Checking every day, automatically, manually, it's all done,
Great, okay, thank you. Well, thank you so much for that overview. Just having a quick look for questions. I think we'll plug on for a bit, but as I say, if there are any questions, please feel free to add them. So Malte has given us a great overview of Google Hotel Ads, which, as I say, is we see it as being probably the single most important distribution channel for hotels to focus on right now, partly because of its growth, the growing prominence. The scale relative to other Meta is probably 70% or so of volume that we see for hotels, but partly actually also because of its potential. We see that already Google Meta is having great value for a lot of hotels, but we think that the potential is really a order of magnitude larger. And so I wanted to touch a little bit on why I think that some hotels, whilst they're taking part, are still not getting as much value as they could be. Doing Meta, being part of Google Hotel Ads, for example, is a start, but turning up on the field with a team is one thing, but turning up on a field with a team that can beat, play in the championship is quite different. And so achieving really great performance in Meta, which is what I think most hotels are actually after, rather than just taking part, is a lot harder. And so why is it that we think that hotels are not achieving as much from Meta as they could? I think the most obvious example is you just look at the OTAs. So the large OTAs are driving not only a good return on investment, they're making Meta work for them financially, but they're also driving huge volumes. Something like between 20 and 25% of OTAs bookings on their websites are driven from Meta. And that compares to hotels average on Meta about 2% of volume. So OTAs are able to make Meta work financially and at huge volume, and hotels can make it work, but aren't yet really very often or frequently enough hitting the volumes. We definitely see hotels who are doing better than this, but the vast majority, the average, as you can see, is more like 2%. So what is it? What are the missing factors? What do hotels need to do to change in their bidding or whatever else to make it work better? So I'm going to go through three areas. One, unintended strategies, the strategy with which hotels are approaching Meta, and this Malte's already touched on a little bit. Parity challenges, again, is already touched on from a impact that will have on your bidding, but actually I take a slightly different approach to it as well. And then also man against machine, the way in which many hotels are manually managing or having their agencies manually manage campaigns is just simply not enough to jump to OTA levels of performance. And you can be sure that the OTAs are not managing their campaigns manually, looking at them once a day with a human. That just simply isn't going to work in 2020. So going through these unintended strategies, I always think it's fascinating when you look at how organizational constraints have an impact on strategy without people even realizing it. And I think that happens in every company, every organization, whatever size. So what you may be doing is chasing top position. This is the strategy we often see the general manager or the owner of a hotel want to push. They say, we've spent years trying to be #1 on Google. Now you can bid to be #1. So why aren't we #1? And they get all upset that the hotel in Google Hotel Ads may not be ranking #1. And of course, following a strategy of chasing to be #1 is not a very sensible strategy. But chasing to be #1, which usually requires you to bid quite a lot, will drive the highest exposure, right? It will get you seen by the most people and maybe also drive the most number of clicks, but it's unlikely to drive the highest ROI. So we, Triptease, looked through alongside one of our partners who provides feeds, a company called Whip. We looked at 2,000 hotels bidding on Meta for the last 2 years. And what we found was, as you can see here, that actually if a hotel is trying to be in the 3rd or 4th position, they get a much better ROI. They won't get quite the same exposure. They will drop down in volume a little bit, but they'll get a better return on investment. Yeah, making sure you've got your strategy clear. Another strategy that we see out there is people saying, well, I just want maximum ROI. I want to get the highest possible return on ad spend. And we speak to some hoteliers who delight in the fact that they get a 60 times return on ad spend. You know, they're spending something like 1.5%, 2% equivalent commission. That is a great achievement, right? Getting that high ROI is wonderful. But if you just chase high ROI, what you'll end up doing is turning off markets. So looking, for example, here, again, from our research, we saw that desktop provides a ROI of, well, 1 in this index, and mobile and tablet fall some way behind. 28% behind is tablets. So if you just chase high ROI, if your goal is maximum possible return on ad spend, because that's what my boss has given me as a target, then what you should do is turn off mobile and tablet in this case. And obviously turning off mobile and tablet means you're instantly not ranking for a lot of your guests, and so your volume will go down. So you can see the strategy that you pick or the goal you have can have quite an impact, and it's a trade-off, and I'll come to that in a second. I guess often perhaps most frustrating or most interesting is that it's the implicit decisions, the internal structures that dictate a strategy for a hotel. So whether Meta happens to be given to the person who's running marketing or happens to be picked up by the person who's running distribution, often those people, those two departments have very different goals. They have different ways of buying or acquiring traffic and guests. One is fixed budget, one is variable. And those two different approaches will often dictate the strategy for a hotel without them even realizing it. Without realizing, oh, it's because I have this role and I think about the world from a marketing point of view that the strategy is going to be this, whereas actually a distribution person might have come up with a different one. And the key is not that one of these is right, one is wrong. The key is to just be very aware, to be fully aware, how are we going to get value from Meta? Some hotels we speak to, some of the most sophisticated, on some Meta platforms, they're not bidding to try and get high volume. They're bidding purely for just awareness and just to be there. And whereas in other Meta platforms, they're bidding just because they want to drive performance. So you've got to understand, what are we trying to do and why, and how should that then dictate our strategy? Because, and this is to sum up this point, the key thing is to understand that there's a trade-off. So again, looking across these 2,000 hotels, what we found was that for hotels, when they're prepared to pay 9% higher commission, and I should say that's going from 10% commission rate to a 10.9%, so it's 9 points higher, then the revenue that they will get, the additional bookings they will get, is around a 10% increase. So you can see there's a trade-off. There's a decision for you to make. There's no right or wrong. You have to decide, what level of commission am I prepared to pay to get the maximum volume? Or am I after a low volume, I just want maximum ROI? But you need to think through that and understand the trade-off that your particular hotel is facing, which of course, sadly, to make things more complicated, is a trade-off that evolves over time. But it's trade-offs that's very much there. So I think probably most of the time, best practice we're generally seeing in the market is hotels are saying, my OTA commissions are X, I want to be able to get Meta biddings and I'm prepared to pay right up until that X. Some hotels say they'll pay a bit more because they prefer direct, but generally, if your OTA commission is 16%, most hotels are saying, well, we'll pay up to that once you've including, sorry, the cost of, say, the bookings through the booking engine. Okay, whew. So that covers number one, making sure you've got the right strategy. Number two area to really think about is parity, which was already mentioned, making sure you got the price right. So bidding when undercut, I think this is probably something that 90% of hotels on Meta are doing today, and it's quite an extraordinary thing when you think about it. So here's a screenshot I took just a bit earlier, which was a hotel that remained blacked out to protect the innocent or guilty, but blacked out nevertheless. And you can see the hotel is advertising. They're in the second position above Agoda, and they are more expensive. Now, what happens when you are taking part in Meta and you're more expensive or consistently more expensive is that your number one, you're having to pay more, as Malta explained earlier, but also your click-through rates drop significantly because consumers who see the two prices are more likely to pick the cheaper one. But I think the really important bit here, a much bigger issue, is not that click-through rates have dropped. It's that you're, in effect, the hotel is paying to advertise. We're a really, really bad place to buy this hotel room from. Don't book direct, you'll overpay, right? If you are consistently being undercut, you really either shouldn't probably be appearing on Meta for those searches, or you need to go get your parity fixed first, because it's going to be very, very hard for you to make Meta work profitably if you've got bad parity, full stop. Now, one of the options for that, and one of the things that certainly we do at Triptease, because parity has always been something that we've spent a lot of time on, is we'll actually help automatically for the hotel bid when they've got good prices or the prices are not far off the market, and then withhold bids and not bid when they know they're being undercut. So just that difference can have a really big impact on the ROI you get from Meta overall, because you get to then spend the money that you would have wasted on the bad times. You get to spend more money on when you're getting a good ROI, which means your average ROI jumps up disproportionately. So it's a really important point, this. You don't want to advertise if that you're a bad place to book. I'm trying to drive more direct, right? That's what it's all about. Okay, third point, man versus machine. It's a rather freaky photo, forgive that. I couldn't resist. So I guess if, as Malta already pointed out, there are a number of different bidding multipliers. And this is like one of the most transformative, fabulous things that I think Google Hotel Ads has done in the metasphere. It's provided these levers available open to all. So the hotel can really understand its guests, and based on the information the hotel has about its guests, can make a decision, a better informed decision about who to bid for and how much to pay. So we have now these levers, and here are some of them. We know we've got to understand, we've got to recognize we're playing the game here. We're playing the Google game here, and we want to win. And so you've got to understand your game is about understanding which of these levers you should be pulling and how much you should be paying for each one. So for example, if your hotel attracts German guests and German guests pay twice as much as a French guest, the Germans are more likely to have F&B spend or stay longer or pay for a higher room. Then you should be spending more in Meta for those German guests as opposed to the French. And you've got to understand, like, all of these different levers, how to bid on them. And so it's worth, obviously one way you can do that is you can do some analysis, or you can have a partner like us or your digital agency or whatever, run some analysis to work it out. And the kinds of things that we see are different, as I mentioned, different value, different ROI from different searcher region. This was generic, which, given that these were hotels across the world, is not very useful for any one hotel, but you get the point. Different guests from different regions can be worth different amounts. You could also look at how your ROI for guests changes over time. So you can see here that the cost per click in August at 99 cents was very different from the average cost per click in May. So over time, what other people are bidding in auctions on Google Hotel Ads is evolving, and what you're prepared to bid at different points of the year is also changing. So what you can do is you can take this analysis and say, okay, if I'm bidding for guests who are going to arrive in May, I'm prepared to pay more, or I just don't want to bid in May because it's overpriced compared to the ROI target I'm trying to hit. So again, this is the kind of analysis you can do as a human, and you can kind of take it in. And then laying another layer on it, you can say, well, wait a second. Also, the ROI changes a lot day by day in the week, because guests are maybe more likely to be booking on Fridays for your property or booking on a Saturday. And again, there's different calculation you can do for how much should I pay for these bidding levers. And I hope what you're beginning to realize is for every single one of these bidding levers, there are many, many calculations you can do to get to a perfect bid multiple. And very quickly, once you have 6 bidding levers, you realize you actually got hundreds of thousands, in fact, tens of millions of different bids you could put for every guest who turns up on Google. And as soon as you're talking about those kind of numbers, you have to realize that actually we're simply not going to be able to do that on an ongoing basis, day by day, using humans. And so that was one of the reflections we had, Triptease, as when it came to Meta, was this just has to go. This has to go automated, and that has to be the way it's going to work for hotels, because it's not like hoteliers are sitting twiddling their thumbs, wondering what they should do with themselves today, right? You're busy, very busy. So I think the way that this is going to go very quickly is everyone is moving on to automation. And of course, Malte already mentioned that Google has some automated programs that you can work with. So I think I just wanted to finish off with a little bit of few examples of some of the automation we've done, some of the automation experiments, and some of the results where we've seen it. And this, of course, is a picture of AlphaGo, as you probably know and are aware of, considered one of the hardest games in the world, that it would take decades for computers to be able to beat humans. But suddenly, all of this extraordinary compute power that Google, amongst others, have made available has made it possible to hit very quickly. So one example, this is kind of what we tend to see as a trend when there's a hotel with, and I should make this really clear, with sufficient volume of bookings on their booking engine. If you've got a sufficient volume of bookings on your booking engine, I think Google says a minimum of 15 for their automation, but it works best when there are at least 50 bookings a month. When you've got a good volume of bookings coming through, then it's possible for the algorithms that run bids to just constantly improve, right? They look at the 30 bids in July and they notice that, oh, we were overpaying for people from England. So we'll change the bidding multipliers. And we were overpaying on Tuesdays, so we'll change the bidding and multipliers. And then over time, the computer gets better. And this is a real life case study from a client who went live, and you see it just like gets better. And what we're looking here at is not only is the return on ad spend getting better, but also so is the percentage of revenue, the percentage of bookings that are coming from Meta, coming from Google Hotel Ads. Both are increasing, and that's what you need to look for. Equally, switching algorithms, which is actually one of the things that we think is a really key part of making Meta work really well. So we have a number of different algorithms, including using the Google automated algorithm. And based on a hotel and based on different segments and how it's performing, we'll use different algorithms to target different parts of their market. So, for example, it might be that you say anyone who's in who's got a default bid where they haven't defined what dates they're traveling to the hotel, the Google Hotel Ads algorithm on the commission program, that works best. However, as soon as they put in their dates, then we're going to use algorithm number 2, which is targeting ROAS. What happened here was a hotel which we felt was underperforming and wasn't doing well enough on the algorithm. We switched it onto 2 different ones, and the result, the performance went up both in revenue and also in the return on ad spend. So the point again is you've got to just constantly be evolving what you're doing and looking for a better performance. And then the third thing that we've seen work most well, and I guess this has been a theme throughout this, is making sure that you're using the hotel's data in a joined up way. So you need to be looking at your data of the guests who arrive on your website. Guests who arrive on your website, who's most likely to book? How much more likely are they to book based on the kind of bidding levers we've seen Google have? And you need to start there. And then after that, you need to be looking at, based on the data we have about our guests who come to the property and spend money, our PMS data, what does that tell us about our unique guests? And we need to use that data in a joined up way to make smarter decisions throughout the ad funnel. So there are many, I always feel for hotels, because the OTAs who we're competing as a channel against have so many weapons in their arsenal. They are so big, they have so much amazing data, and of course they've got incredible conversion machines. They are just amazing websites. So they've got all this power and strength. But the hotels also have some real advantages, and it's up to you to make sure you take full advantage of them. Something like 80% of hotel guests will have gone onto the hotel website. Even if someone's an OTA booker, a booking.com booker, they'll still come onto the hotel website because they want more information. So you are getting to see almost all of your guests, and you're getting to see them, and then of course you're getting to know who converts. And so if you use that data throughout the funnel, then you can just drive much better performance and personalize people's whole journey throughout. Okay, so that is it on the, and then this was a case study of someone having great performance and it all going very well because they took some more advanced approaches to Meta. Lots of numbers, they're all very good, but you probably don't want me to bore you with those. So that hopefully gives you a good sense of both, what are the basics? How do I get onto Meta? Why is Google important? What's the right approach? But then also, what's the next level of performance? What can I do to really achieve what the OTAs are getting from Meta, and also what some of the best hotels are? Okay, so I think we have a question. One to start with. Pablo from Mirai asks, what about audiences? Can you talk about audience lists? Audience lists, could you tell us a little about, explain those?
Sure. I mean, just to first of all introduce to people what are audience lists, via Google Ads, which is the Google Ad Management product. Let's say you can create audience lists. That basically means like you can track who comes on your website and you can afterwards retarget them in various ways. And also in hotel ads, you can integrate those audience lists, meaning you have a bit multiplier for audiences. So for example, to make this practical, if you are having an audience list that tracks people that visited your website and even clicked the booking button but then didn't complete the booking, and you want to specifically make sure that they see your ads again, you can utilize this as a bidding tool. And you can also see how much percentage of the traffic actually comes via our audience list.
Yeah, audience lists are incredibly powerful. In fact, actually, it's one of the areas I'd love you guys to do even more, because there's a limit on just how much you can differentially bid on people in audience lists, but it's definitely one of the areas we find really, really helpful.
Yeah. I can sneak preview here that we have heard the feedback that basically our clients, our ad customers want the same audience features that you also have for other Google Ads products like search, like display, and we definitely take this feedback serious and look at what we can do.
Okay, yeah, not saying too much there, but just enough. So just to explain, so with Triptease, what we've done for the last 5 years is sit on hotel websites and booking engines, and we track every guest and everything they're doing across thousands of different hotels. And from that, we've been able to very quickly, within a couple of clicks, you can identify someone who's a very likely booker in the next 24 hours or someone who is very unlikely to book. And so you can use that propensity to convert as a way to score individuals, and it's really powerful, because if you know that person who did this in 30 seconds on our website has got 5 times more chance of booking today than the person who took other actions, you can then use that data to make a dynamic bid change in Google Hotel Ads. So audience lists are one of the most powerful bits of Google Hotel Ads, because it actually allows you to make dynamic bid changes for people, much faster than you might otherwise, because you can move people between audiences as well. So it's really powerful and really key. Thank you for the question. I have a question here. I would like to ask, what if we open our rate website in Google Hotel Ads and our rate is higher than another OTA who's undercutting us? So we touched on that a little bit earlier. If you're being undercut, if there's a parity issue, then you obviously that's something that hotels have been grappling with for years, and I really it's a topic of many other webinars, because a very important one that we've taken on. But ultimately, if someone's breaking parity with you, that's not something really you can take up with Google. That's something you need to take up with the people you provide rates to. A couple of the strategies for that are, some people say turning off static rates and moving to dynamic. I think that partially helps. Others do test bookings, and then they identify what's driving the undercut, and then try to turn off those channels that are doing it. Personally, I think the world is about to change. I think what we've seen with Booking.com, who for years tried to drive hotels to turn off bad actors who are breaking parity. Booking's kind of given up on that, and they've just said, forget getting hotels to turn off the bad actors. We're just going to match the bad actors. And so hence Booking Basic. And to be honest, I think that's what we're seeing with our customers on Meta, is they're beginning now much more to say, if we've got an OTA that's undercutting us, we're going to match them within certain boundaries. We're going to match them, and then we're also going to match all the way through to Meta, so that guests with those search dates see the same price that's matching the undercut, so that we can be on Meta, we can have the best price, and we take away the incentive for third parties to trash our rates. So yeah, there was a few different things in there to answer that one. It's a complicated one. Oh, lots more questions. I have someone. There are so many. I have to prioritize them. So here's one. One has come in. Oh yeah, that one. Another question about Google Display Network and ads on Google.
I would already say, let's not prioritize this, for the very simple reason that we are really not talking about display. It's a completely different ad product today, right? And I would recommend we stick to, for the sake of the audience, to what we are having here.
Okay, that sounds very sensible. Is Google the right meta search channel for everyone? Well, that's a good one. I will. To save his blushes, I'll say it's certainly the one the vast majority of hotels should start with. So there's no question, in different parts of the world, different meta search are strong for different audiences. So Trivago, for example, originally was particularly strong in Germany. So there's no question that you need to consider for you, where your guests are coming from, which meta search works best for you. But without question, the thing we're seeing from Google is the highest volume by a long way. Sometimes other meta search will actually drive a higher ROI, but you just can't get much volume through them. So again, it's something to experiment with. I don't know if you have anything else to.
I would really just add to that. We do see, again, so much travel related queries on Google, which means that I'm probably not too stretched to say that nearly every traveler in regions where Google has a strong market share of users returns to Google for travel related questions. And that means they will come across the hotel, maybe your hotel, when they're interested in it. And by not being present means you lose the chance to get the direct booking there. So it's up to your decision, of course. But I would say, if your goal is to be present everywhere where there is a direct booking opportunity, then there is no reason not to be on Hotelads, especially given the billing models that you have that allow for only paying when there is a booking.
Yeah. Okay, we have, what are the biggest meta mistakes a hotel can make? So I might throw in one extra one there. One of the things we've seen happen quite a lot in the past, I think hopefully it might be evolving, is if I mentioned already, meta is hard to make work if you have a low volume of bookings running through your website. If you have 10 bookings a month running to your website and you have to pay someone to keep a feed live, even if you're using Google's automated products, it can be really hard to make it work, because there's so little data for any automation or even for any human to drive smart bidding decisions for an individual property with low volumes. And if you've got low booking volume, like under 10 a month, probably that suggests you've got either not a great booking engine, or you've got a very small property, or you've got bad parity. So I would say, if you've got fewer than 10 bookings a month, meta probably isn't the first thing to fix. It's probably better to first sort out the conversion rate on your website, your parity, get that in order before you go and try and drive more traffic. I think often people think, well, if I just bring more traffic through the funnel, then more people will convert. But actually, you've got to first fix the conversion problem and then go out and get the traffic. I think because I think a lot of hotels have tried meta and then pulled back, and often that's the reason.
So I would definitely mirror that. I think disregarding mobile websites specifically, especially if you're in APAC or if you have a global audience, that is a very big one, because it's just the fact that the traffic comes from there increasingly. And I would maybe add just one component to it, especially from hoteliers. I often get the question, what budget would you allocate? And that's already a meta mistake in my personal point of view. I would really not think in budgets here. I would either, if I'm a performance-driven advertiser, give it an ROI goal, and then I say whatever I can get in terms of volume by hitting this ROI that limits my budget. That's the natural budget restriction, but I can't tell you until you try. Or the other angle is if you go more from I want to own my traffic, you set yourself an impression share goal, meaning a visibility goal, and see what it takes to get it. But think in clear goals and hit them rather than what's the budget restriction, when do I close the shop. Like, that's not how it works. Yeah.
Cool. And then I'll add one more in there, which is if you're working with a partner, perhaps who's doing the feeds to Google, is that it can, and again, this is one of the reasons why having a low volume through your website can be hard, or a restriction on Meta, is based on the amount of money you're spending to pay someone to keep the feed live to Google. And maybe they're saying, oh, we'll also take care of the bidding, and then they're just passing the money to Google to run Google bidding. If too much of the cash that you want to spend on Google ends up going in the pockets of your partners, then you simply won't be able to be efficient on Meta. You know, Booking.com isn't spending 30% of their Meta budget on a partner for connectivity to Google. They're spending probably 0.01% of their budget on the connectivity. So if hotels are having to spend 10, 20, 30%, and I'm afraid to say we've seen some partners who are charging 40 or more, then it's just really hard to get a return in this auction, because it's all about being efficient in the auction. So I think asking for demanding transparency from partners is probably another key tip. Okay, great. I think that is it for questions for now. So I just wanted to finish by saying thank you very much for joining us, for talking us through Google Hotel Ads. As I say, I just think this is singularly the most important thing hotels need to be thinking about for distribution this year, next year, and probably for a while after. So thank you, and I hope we'll be able to repeat it again with
of course
more information.
I would say thanks to you and your team for organizing this webinar, right? And I hope for the audience there were quite some useful insights, and let's follow up at the next event.
Okay, great. So both recording will be emailed to you, or a link with a recording, and link to the recording, and also slides, so if you wanted to get any of those. And then I will finish by just saying one last quick advert. The Direct Booking Summit, if you are a hotelier in the Asia Pacific region and you want to find out more about what other hotels are doing in Meta, hear tips, hear disaster stories, things hotels tried to do to drive direct that didn't work, as well as those things that have worked, then please put a date in your diary. The Direct Booking Summit in Bangkok, 19th to 20th of February. We had a sellout over capacity crowd at the first APAC Direct Booking Summit in Singapore earlier this year. We have another one if you prefer to travel, then we have a Direct Booking Summit in Miami next month. But I would put Bangkok in the diary, because we try to make it a really inclusive place where everybody just shares tips and tricks of everything that they've tried. And I have absolutely no doubt there will be a lot of discussion about Meta and Parity and how to maintain it. Thank you again, and thank you all very much for joining us. I hope that was helpful. We'd love to get any feedback, and thank you for the questions.